Hey guys, today we are going to talk about ridding your life of the negative habits that are keeping you stuck. When I think of habits, I think of the quote, do what is right, not what is easy. And unfortunately, so many times we as women do the things that we think feel good to us, but we don't realize the negative impact that they have. A lot of times our habits start off with small steps that compound. So for example, we say, okay, well, I am only going to eat one donut, right? One donut probably in of itself doesn't really hurt. But if you eat one donut for every day of the week, then you've had 7 donuts. And by the end of the week, that's compounded and it probably will have a negative impact. And so I wanted to talk about habits and how they sneak up on us and really have such a negative impact on us. The quality of our life is determined by our small habits. Those small choices that we make each day determines the course of our life. And so every day that you choose not to go to the gym, that's a poor habit that impacts your health and therefore your energy and therefore your mind or your body. Every day that you choose to eat unhealthy foods, that impacts your energy and maybe your sleep and maybe your attitude or your moods. Every day that you choose to read, on the flip side, we'll talk about positive habits, you're now impacting your brain in a good way. And so habits can work in our favor as well if we allow them to. So today we are specifically going to address 3 tips to help you to break bad habits. The first step is to identify which habit it is that you definitely want to break. And along with that, you want to identify your why. It is so important that you make the habit that you want to break be about you. If you say, I want to break the habit of eating cookies, but it's not something you truly desire, you probably won't stick with it. When you have that strong umph behind you, that strong why, that motivates you to continue and propel in the right direction to break that habit. And so for me, for example, I kept saying I was going to give up dairy because I have an aunt who's a health coach and she said dairy was bad. Fine, okay, great. But I needed to have a reason why I wanted to give it up. Long story short, my daughter was having negative reactions to dairy, and therefore I had a bigger drive to remove dairy from my house because I wanted to protect her and I hated to see her in such pain and just itching and uncomfortableness. And so that was a bigger why for me, and therefore I pushed harder to break that habit. When you're just breaking habits just because somebody else told you to break it, it's not going to last long because it's not something you truly desire. The second step in my process is to find an accountability partner. See, a lot of times we want to start breaking habits, but we say that in our mind, but we're not having that accountability piece with it. And that accountability piece is super, super beneficial. Take me, for example. I decided that I was going to give up sweets. So I've been trying to fast from sweets. I've been doing really good, wish me luck, for about 3 weeks. Well, last week, I was just talking on the phone to one of my friends and driving, and I was like, hey, I'm going to stop at Chick-fil-A for a milkshake. And instantly she checked me like, hey, aren't you supposed to be fasting from sweets? And I was like, oh my goodness. But it becomes so ingrained because it's just a daily habit and a daily pattern that I didn't think about it. And so when she said that to me, it immediately shocked me back into reality and made me go the other direction. But without her saying that, without that accountability, without her holding me accountable, I would have kept going. There was no reason for me to stop. And so just having that extra person to support you in the process, somebody you can vent to, somebody that will tell you when you're wrong, is really beneficial. And that is really important. And then the last step for breaking your habits is to give yourself grace and then visualize the rewards. So it's kind of like a 2-step process in the last one. So when you give yourself grace, you have to understand you're human and a habit won't be broken overnight, right? They say it takes 21 days, but that's the minimum. It could take some people 45 days. And so you really want to remember that when you do accidentally drive to Chick-fil-A to get a milkshake or whatever habit it is that you're trying to break. Remember that and allow yourself to receive that grace. You deserve it. We're human, we make mistakes, and all we can do is learn and grow from them the next time around. And then the second part to that is to visualize the rewards. So every time you make that mistake, regroup and say, I'll start over fresh, and visualize what that will look like. What will that look like when I'm breaking this habit? What will tomorrow look like when I'm starting over fresh? Think about that. And when you actually visualize it, it actually inspires you to want to work towards it more because you're just living in that dream and you're like, oh my gosh, that dream is right there. I can reach it. I can touch it. I can grab it and it can be mine. If you believe that and you visualize that on a regular basis, you will be successful at breaking those negative habits.